Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We'll be starting in a minute or two to allow people to join and settle in. As a reminder, we will be making this recording available on demand afterwards in case you want to rewatch or send to colleagues. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and Jim will be happy to answer them at the end. Thanks again for joining us, and we will begin shortly. All right, Jim, go ahead and get started.
Okay, thank you, Ashlyn, and hi, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on the power of brand in your secure coding program. My name is Jim Loughran. I'm a principal consultant in the professional services practice at Secure Code Warrior. Pleasure to be with you today. So before we delve right into this topic, I want to talk briefly about our audience, our target audience for this brand. When we're creating a brand or we're creating a kind of powerful motif or logo or brand name, we have to, first of all, acknowledge and understand who our target audience is. Who do we want to, who's the group that we want to be affected by this brand? And the quote there is very, very powerful, compelling, and relevant and impactful, because the brand that you end up with is not what you, the creator of that brand, say it is or think it is. It's what they say it is. It's what your audience, your target audience, perceive it to be. So in our case, in application security and developer-driven security, DevSecOps, these domains, our audience are the developers themselves. That's the people we're trying to engage. So important at the outset that we understand that the brand that you're trying to create around a secure coding learning program is not what you determine it to be. It's what the developers determine it to be and how they perceive it. Very important message to start on. Let's also start by jumping straight into a real world example. Very, very recognizable logo. And let's assume that your company for a minute that you're trying to roll out your program in is one of the most recognizable sports and athletic wear brands on the planet, a bit like the one we're looking at on the screen now. Let's assume the logo has a motif like this one with 3 stripes. A big part of developing a brand for your secure coding program, if you were at this company, would not necessarily be about regeneration of brand. It would be about potentially tapping into the existing brand. Given the power, the stature, and the global reach of this brand, it might be sensible for the people building the secure coding program at this company to tap into that brand and some of its motif elements, especially if you want to build, and I'll talk a bit more about this later, a multi-level and layered brand using some of the elements of that visual logo, the stripes. Let's say you thought, aha, we've already got the concept of Adidas stripes. Why don't we use them in our brand to show progression? So the message here is, if you already have something that's powerful, impactful, resonant with your developers, with all of your employees essentially, then maybe reuse of the existing brand and repositioning the existing brand in a different way for your coding program is the way to go. And it is a real world example. So what is branding your program, and how does it fit in the whole wider concept of Secure Code Warrior and what we do with rolling out secure coding programs? Well, for the past 10 and a half years, we've been building secure coding programs with some of the biggest companies in the world, and we have a framework, the enablers of success for doing that, essentially 10 elements that will bring, with a fairly high degree of certainty, a really successful secure coding learning program, or increasingly a development risk management program successfully rolled out in the organization. So number 8 happens to be the one we're talking about today, branding your program. So what is it? It's about establishment of a distinct identity, something that should genuinely resonate with your development community. And the pro tip there is important. If you really want this to resonate with your development community and you are creating something from scratch, you might want to involve developers in the creative process, because then there is that feeling of attachment within your development community straight out of the bat. So you've got an identity. You might have, for that identity, a name. You might have an acronym. ASC at the bottom of the screen there is always one that jumps to mind. One of the first programs I was ever involved in the creation of was the ASC program at one of the biggest financial services companies on the planet. It stood for Application Security Champion. But because it was often shortened and very seldom was used in its extended form, everybody just talked about wanting to be an ASC. And then when we made that program multi-level, people wanted to become a level 2 or a level 3. We'll talk a bit more about that later. But so the key elements: name, an acronym, visual logo, visual elements. And I say, and I underline maybe swag for a very specific reason. A lot of customers and a lot of companies that I worked with over the years immediately jumped to, let's create swag, let's have t-shirts and caps and golf balls and whatever else. And it's a great idea and it can work really, really well in certain circumstances. But the thing to remember is you want to avoid making it too gimmicky. We're trying to engage developers, super smart people here, super creative people. And yes, everyone likes a free t-shirt for sure. But just the kind of message here is to think about how you position it and not to make it too much of a gimmick, because that can put people off your brand. And then we have to start thinking beyond just a visual thing, a logo, a motif, and a TLA or an FLA, a 3 or 4 letter acronym. You have to think about encapsulating, embodying, relating to your core value, what you're trying to do with your secure coding rollout, secure coding learning program in this rollout, and what's the unique story that you're trying to tell. And really important, when you think about what that brand looks like and how it links to the program, you really, really need to make sure there is some connection to the business value, the business driver behind why you're doing it in the first place. It's no longer acceptable just to create a logo, if it ever was, because it's like fun and good and cool. Let's have a logo, let's have a name. You have to think about how that ties into business value and business results. Ultimately, the outcome you're looking for is for the brand to become essentially embedded in the consciousness of your development community. You want that to be a thing that people know about. Every developer just gets it, they just know about it. It's a thing, it's respected, and it's desirable. Your developers want to be part of it. And if you did come up with a brand called ASC, you do, and you will expect to hear your development community talking about things like, I want to be an ASC, or I'm an ASC level 2. And we'll come on to that example later. So that's fundamentally what it is, creating that brand to drive your secure coding learning program, or frankly, any program that has a brand. Going to jump into another example. Before I do, just a reminder, questions are welcome. Pop them in the Q&A box, not the chat box. Ashlyn's monitoring them, and we'll get to them hopefully at the end of the session. So let's jump into another example. So this is one of the most recognizable global shipping and logistics companies on the planet. Anyone who's ever walked by a shipping container anywhere will probably recognize this logo. Now, again, let's say you worked for this company, you wanted to build a secure coding program. What would you try and do? Well, I think you would possibly try and tap into the types of roles that exist on the ships that take the cargo all around the world. So you could do something like have a deck cadet as a kind of 1-star level. You could have a second officer as a 2-star level, and you could have a chief engineer as a 3-star level, potentially. Now, the key thing about that one, similar to what we talked about a little bit before with the Adidas example, was you can see progression, you can see leveling up, but again, the brand elements are linked to that. Now, it would essentially be linked to a 3-level secure coding program, where level 1 was some of the security foundations and fundamentals. Level 2 might be more specific vulnerabilities that you want to make sure that the developers know about and are able to fix quickly and so on. And then level 3 might be your expert content. That may be really advanced, people who have done the really advanced level content. So let's get on to the subject of kind of the why and the impact. What we're trying to achieve here is the element of sort of fostering an element of community and something that's aspirational. The idea is that if the brand is strong, it elevates your program from something kind of dull, maybe compliance focused, bit of a chore, bit of a we have to do this thing, and take it to a place where the element of identity and the achievement is something that developers can strive for, and that translation, that shift from something which is dull, boring, compliance, don't really want to do that, to something that's aspirational, something people really want to achieve, can be huge in boosting the level of engagement and participation in your program. And that's not necessarily a high value measure, because it's about what they do when they get on the program, but you need them on in the first place. It can, as I said already, it can transform that burden into a more kind of attractive, more aspirational goal, leading your devs and your engineers to participate and champion the objectives of the program. And I've seen this in my experience quite a lot, where when this works, when you get a really strong brand associated with your secure coding program, the secure coding learning program, people are putting their hand up and saying, I want to include the level 1 in my annual PDP, performance development plan, or performance goals for next year. Or if they already have level 1 of the program, let's say they're a deck cadet and they want to make a chief engineer, they could put that into their goals. And I have seen that happening when it's implemented well. I did say that brand is one of the enablers of success for secure coding learning programs that we've seen over the last 10 years at some of the biggest and most famous companies in the world. The great thing about enabler number 8, the brand that we're talking about today, is that it can help to reinforce some of the other enablers. And just for reference, there are 10 enablers currently, enablers of success in the framework. So I've got some examples here. So enabler 3 is all about creating a communication plan. Now, if you have a really strong brand, the communication content becomes super easy. It becomes a making reference to this strong brand, this ASC program when you're doing your communications, and because it's something that relates, something that's resonant, something that's powerful, that people know about, people are talking about, your communications don't have to be overly complex. They can point to that program and people say, right, I've got it. That's what it's about. The other thing is, if we're going to do enabler 7, which I highly recommend, is all about developer recognition, it makes celebrating those wins like tournament placement, getting a level 1 certification. When those wins are called out, again, they can be called out under the banner, under the umbrella associated with this brand that you've created, and it really elevates and amplifies the achievement because it's related to something that's already in the consciousness of the group. Enabler 5 is all about building a multi-level certification program, and if you have a brand associated with that has progression, giving developers something meaningful to achieve, a strong brand can really facilitate and amplify that journey of going from brand level 1 to brand level 2 to brand level 3 and so on. Again, it just makes that association makes it so much easier for people, developers in this case, to connect to if they're doing something that's multi-level, multi-year, trying to achieve a certification, if it's got that strong brand associated with it. And then senior leadership sponsorship. We always want to get, in our secure coding programs, we want to get C-level people involved, or at least going beyond passive, passive awareness into active support. And if it's associated with a brand that the execs, the CTO, the CIO, the CISO are already aware of, because it's a company brand or it's something that has been promoted well, strong brand exists associated with it, then it's easier to get those C-level people behind the brand, behind the message, and then they enhance its credibility and they give it further application through the senior levels of the business. So that's essentially the kind of three main drivers around why and the impact. I know everyone's excited for another example, so here we go. Let's tap into it. And apologies if anyone's a Trekkie out there. Spoiler alert, we're doing a Star Wars themed brand this time. We've seen this a lot. We've seen lots of movie franchises being used in some way in secure coding learning programs that are multi-level. And the key thing about this is something I talked about earlier, is a clear progression. So at your foundational level of secure coding, you might be a youngling, then you would move to a Padawan as you develop skills in a few vulnerabilities that are relevant to your organization. And then as you move on up the stack, you become a Jedi Knight, and that's where you're covering maybe all 10 of the OWASP top 10 or all 25 of the SANS top 25 vulnerability list at the Jedi Knight level, and then ultimately Yoda reminds us that he's at the top of the tree, and you could become a Jedi Master and know about multiple vulnerabilities across multiple technology stacks, a real master in your field. Again, that progression is what's so important here. That natural brand progression that people will know about, be able to relate to if they're Star Wars fans. If they're not, well, you can't win them all. I'm sure you could do something similar for Star Trek or something else. But anyway, as Yoda would say, progression matters. progression matters. It does, and it has to, I think, be laid out like that initially, so that people see the journey that they can go on as part of the program. And we have had many customers tap into this or similar. Game of Thrones has been used as well as things like Star Wars and other TV and movie franchise. But I think the key thing is, again, lay the progression out so that people know where they're going and what they're trying to achieve over the piece. So I did talk earlier about the fact that doing this whole creating a brand for your secure coding learning program is a great, cool thing to do, but it has to have meaning. It has to have an impact for the business. And I just want to talk a little bit about what those business value drivers are that a well-branded program can drive for you, can deliver for you. So your branding will contribute and be linked to all like broader organizational goals. Like beyond the obvious thing where everybody says, why do we have this branded secure coding program? Well, we want to learn how to create more secure code, and it stops there. No, it has to have bigger goals in that. And the three that I've laid out are recruiting and retaining top talent, number one. When you're recruiting and trying to retain top talent, a very well-branded secure coding program will signal your commitment to the importance of security, the importance of people's professional development, and that fundamentally will make the organisation that bit more attractive to existing and potentially new top talent. It's saying to the people you would hire and the people you would keep, security, secure coding, personal development around this is really important to us. We've got this really powerfully branded program that matters, and that sends a very strong signal. It also contributes to optimization of the development lifecycle. When the secure coding program is well branded, it can be embraced, become an integral part, a natural part of the developer and application culture, supporting that whole aim of when developers are involved, they help avoid vulnerability injection. So they reduce the friction involved, they reduce rework and the costs associated with both. So we're translating the power of a well-branded secure coding program into a real business driver to reduce the cost associated with delivering software. Again, hugely important that we can link to real business drivers. And then the third one is about maintaining your own, within your own companies, your customer trust and loyalty, because a well-branded secure code learning program will really showcase your organization's, your company's dedication to building secure applications and safeguarding your customers' data. And fundamentally, you're preserving your own business reputation by delivering on a well-branded secure code learning program. So let's talk about some practical steps. And when you work with Secure Code Warrior, you'll have a customer success manager and other people who really know how to go very deep into the specific steps around this enabler, this success enabler around branding. But I've just picked a few that I wanted to highlight today. And for those like who lead customer success teams in Europe, Bex, I'm thinking about you. These practical steps is something that your team knows all about, as well as the additional ones. So my message to people out there when they engage with Secure Code Warrior is ask about the enablers of success from your customer success manager, and they'll take you through this in a lot more detail than I have time to do today. But let's go through one or two of them anyway. So first and foremost, don't or resist the temptation to become a marketing expert. If you're trying to create a strong brand, a strong logo, a strong motif, talk to your marketing and communication teams. Most companies of any size will have marketing and communications teams, and they have that deep expertise in and around creating a compelling brand, the messaging, and how to succeed at engagement. And as AppSec professionals and development people and technologists, we often want to be experts in the thing that we're going to get involved in beyond our immediate domain, but we're not expert in this. And that's okay. People in the marketing and comms teams are really, really good at this. And they come with the advantage that if there is a branded program out there that you may not have heard of, they'll know about it. They'll know about most marketing and brand driven activity going on across the company that inside application security and information security you may not have visibility to. So it's okay not to be expert, it's okay not to know everything. Tap your marketing and comms teams on the shoulder and say, hi, this is what we're trying to do. Can you help us if something doesn't exist today? And one of the things that you're going to ask them about is, what are the existing internal brands? And can you align to them? Can what exists out there and is already common parlance, what's being talked about in the company, something that people are just generally aware of in their day-to-day life and activity and their work, and your developers will hopefully be aware of? You can tap into that. It gives the program a real head start if something is out there already. Now, getting creative and starting with a blank piece of paper is fine, but if you don't need to, then why not leverage what's out there already? That's something that often I think people overlook. The other big message that we've talked a little bit about already is the why. Why are we doing this? What are the benefits to the business, to the developers themselves? That is often overlooked. It's just an expectation that, well, of course, every developer is going to want to learn how to write secure code. Well, you know what? The reality is that they're very, very busy people. They've got a lot to do and they've probably got a lot of training already. So what is in it for them? So you want to make sure that your branding touches on or leads to, or at least is linked to, messaging around how the program and how participation in the program will help boost their own personal growth, their skill development, and fundamentally it will help drive their career, their prosperity. And who's not going to want to take part in that? The other really important message that I wanted to pick out is around consistency. If you start a branded program in January, you talk all about the brand and you get your messaging out there and your brand is everywhere and people know about it and people are talking about it and it's great. And then a few months later, you've changed it. You've started, you've ripped up that first brand and you want to talk about the program with another brand name. Be very, very, very wary of inconsistency. You do not want to change. And if you are going to change your program's name, acronym, logo, visuals, core messaging, whatever it happens to be, fess up. Don't try and change it on the fly. Tell people, because again, the people you're trying to get attention from, people's headspace you're trying to kind of enter. Busy people, got a lot going on, and they'll get confused. They'll be, hang on, this new thing in April that's being talked about, is that the same as this thing that they talked about, the ASC program or the C2C program or the DEP cadet? Is this the same thing or is it different? So really, really important that once you've gone to the effort, because I have seen this mistake made a lot where people latch on to maybe something, latch on to a brand that for whatever reason goes away and all of a sudden a new thing comes along, but it's underneath, under the covers, behind the brand, it's the same thing. That's really going to confuse people. And if you are in a position where you have to do that, where you lose some of that consistency, you have to be really transparent in your messaging around it's happened. We've had to change the brand. We're changing. We're a new program, but it's essentially the same thing. And you have to, as I say, just be really, really transparent and upfront about it. Now, we want to resist the temptation of communicating people to death, but when it comes to your brand being established, being consistent about it, and you can kind of rinse and repeat. So in January, you say we launched the program. In April, you're going to say, right, we're now moving to level 2 of the program. You really can't over communicate that stuff, especially if it's consistent. Especially if you've got a consistent link to the brand that you launched in January, always try and link it back, because it's so easy for people just to look at the email or the Slack message or Symphony or whatever instant messaging platform you use, or however you communicate, Discord with your development community. You want to link it to something that they've already become aware of. If you do that, it's really, really easy to take people on the journey. It's like back in January, we spoke to you about this new branded program called the ASC program. Fast forward to April. Remember, we spoke to you about the ASC program, but we've now released level 2. People are like, oh, I remember that ASC thing. I did that back in January. They're talking about it again. That consistency allows you that over communication. It allows you to keep talking about it, because people are not questioning what is it and what is this about, and why am I doing this again? You've already succeeded in that area with your initial communication and around your brand. Be consistent where you can, and where you can't, it's not your fault. That happens. Be really transparent about the change. Don't try and do it behind under the covers or behind the scenes or in the background. Do it up front. Because look, at the end of the day, this is all about doing the business of secure coding in a better way. And a decent brand will really help you do that all day long. Another call out when you work with Secure Code Warrior, your customer success managers will help you with more practical steps around this, but that's just a few I wanted to share, and conscious of time, I'll move on to the example that I've been talking about a lot. And this is a TLA, a 3-letter acronym, the ASC program in action. Try to do it XKCD style, but that's the whatever AI tool I use isn't quite up to the real quality yet. But anyway, what we've got here is a couple of developers chatting together, doing a bit of peer programming, and one happens to say I'm an ASC, and of course the other one's curious. Well, what's that? And, you know, it's the application security champion. It means I know how to write secure code, and I get to work on like high risk development projects that are customer facing and so on. And that creates that little bit of FOMO, that little bit of envy in the other developer. And we're like, wow, that's how do I get that? And so the chain effect, the kind of knock-on effect, and the word of mouth spreads in that kind of way. And that's when you know you've got the genesis, they've got the kind of the foundation of an effective brand, when the little stick person on the left is having that conversation with the little stick person on the right. And then just to really give everything a bit of a AI upgrade, where they really want to aspire to is to be this cyber punk that's in ASC level 3. You transfer from the very 2-dimensional to 3-dimensional world when you become an application security champion level 3. And as I say, so the effect continues. That's what I've seen. Again, I've seen this happen with some of the programs we've been running with some of the biggest and most respected companies in the world. This stuff really resonates when you get it right, when you get an ASC right. So, in conclusion, branding your program, the Secure Code Learning Program, is not just a gimmick. It's not just a thing to make it recognizable for fun. It absolutely is a strategic investment. It takes your secure coding program, or it can, if you do it right, do it well, from a pretty sterile requirement. It's a compliance thing. We have to do it. It's a thing that I stick to beat people with, and transforms it into something that is distinct, valued, aspirational, and becomes part of your company's development and developer culture. If you can embed it within the developer community, you're going to create that environment where delivering secure code and managing the risks associated with development is not just a fundamental requirement. It's actually becomes like a badge of honor, something developers feel proud of, feel part of, because I'm linked to a program that has strong identity. It has visual elements. It has a brand. It's talked about. It's a thing that people get, and it's going to act as an amplifier. It's going to drive engagement. It's going to reinforce the other enablers of success I talked about earlier, and fundamentally, and the most important thing, it's going to contribute directly to your business drivers, and it's going to deliver on business results, and it has to, because if it doesn't, then frankly it doesn't matter. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thanks for allowing me to get briefly into Enabler 8 program branding. Stay tuned to our social platforms, LinkedIn and so on, for more webinars in the series covering the other enablers of success. And with that, Ashlyn, I'll pass it back to you and see if there are any questions.
Yes, we do have some questions. First one, please remind us where we could use our branding, i.e. trophies, newsletters, certificates, emails, community groups, etc.
All of the above. All of the above. You can use your branding in electronic form. You mentioned some yourself. And here's the key thing. When you build a brand that's really recognizable, you want it on almost everything. Well, you do want it on everything within reason. So you want it on your electronic forms of communication. When you're emailing and asking people to go do to come and take part in a tournament or go do their compliance training as part of this program, you use the brand. If you're asking C-levels to do some communication that relates to the program, use the brand there. But if you are going to do swag or branded merchandise, put the brand on that. I had customers who even did desk drops, and I'll say that again, desk drops. They had like tickets, like and inviting people to take part in a secure coding tournament. It was like a concert ticket, like going to see a gig, and it had the branding on it. Any wearables, put the logo on that. So I think you've kind of answered, that person who asked that question kind of answered it themselves already, to say, do you put it on emails? Yes, yes, yes. When it's established and it's good, put it on everything and anything. I hope that helps answer the question. Anything else, Ashlyn?
Yeah. So you talked obviously about enabler number 8. So what are the other enablers? I see that in one of the slides you had a few of them, but what are all the enablers? How many are there?
Great question. So we, in the framework that me and a few other people at Secure Code Warrior developed, they do say it's my baby, but I don't believe that you do anything on your own. So the framework we created, it has 10 enablers, and essentially they're building blocks. If you can get all 10 of them, you're virtually guaranteed success here with rolling out a secure code and learning program. You don't need all 10. But the first ones are very foundational. They talk about making sure you've got a clear, like number one is your reason for the program. Like what's your drivers? Why are you doing it in the first place? Is it compliance? Is it for optimizing your development life cycle? Is it a bit of both? Is it you want to reduce vulnerability? So number one is all about the kind of understanding the why. Number two is about, do you have that C-level support? Number three is about your communications plan. Number four is easy for people to get on and do it, what we call a low barrier to entry, and so on. So stay tuned. We'll do a lot more content on that. But there's 10 enablers. If you get them all done, including number 10, which is all about embedding secure coding achievement in people's development plans, then you've really won. You've really won at this game. You've really won at the game of rolling out secure coding learning programs. But I could go into a lot more detail on that in another session, perhaps. Any other questions, Ashlyn?
Yeah, last question. You obviously seem really passionate about brands and branding, but do you really think it's essential for secure code success?
I really think it's essential. Great question. Look, I would say no. I am passionate about it. I think it can be and is a great amplifier for success of a secure coding program. And some companies, some customers that we've worked with don't go down that path. Not many. They are the exception rather than the rule. I would say this. Um, I, I, if you have a really strong brand, it'll give you a much greater chance of success in rolling out your program than not having it. So you've got to work that bit harder to drive the other enablers of success if you've bypassed or you've ignored number 8, which is all around the branding that we talked about today. So it can work, but it means you've got to work a lot harder the other 9. That's a great question, Aston. Thanks to whoever asked that one.
Yeah,
Anything else?
I think that's it for today. Thank you so much, Jim, for doing this for us. And just as a reminder, we will be making this recording available on demand afterwards in case you want to rewatch, send a colleague. So thanks again for everyone who joined us today.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Ashlyn.